The human ship landed on Araxis like a small insect touching down on the skin of a giant. The planet was beautiful in ways that hurt the eyes. Crystal towers rose into purple skies. Palaces floated on clouds of energy that hummed with ancient power. Everything here was old. Everything here was proud. Kang Do-hyun stepped off the ship and felt the alien sun on his face. It was warmer than Earth's sun, and the air tasted like metal and flowers mixed together. He kept his face blank. Showing emotion here was weakness, and humans could not afford to look weak. They were already seen as weak enough. The Valanthi, waiting to greet them, stood 3 meters tall. Their skin was like polished stone, gray and smooth. Natural armor plates covered their shoulders and arms. Their eyes glowed soft gold. And when they looked at the humans, there was amusement there. The kind of amusement a grown person shows when watching children play at being adults. "Welcome to the throne world of the Valanthi Empire," the lead official said. His voice was deep like thunder in distant mountains. "We hope your stay will be educational." The human ambassador, a woman named Director Kwon Ji-hye, smiled politely and bowed. Not too deep. Deep enough to show respect. Shallow enough to keep dignity. It was a careful balance. Do-hyun stood behind her with the rest of the security team. Captain Lee Tae-ho was at his left. Park Yuna, the cultural advisor, stood to his right. They were all dressed in formal military uniforms, black with silver trim. Simple, clean, human. The Valanthi guards towered over them. Each one was a warrior born, trained from birth in combat arts, older than human civilization. They looked at the human security team the way wolves might look at small dogs pretending to be fierce. Do-hyun did not look away from them. He met their golden eyes with his brown ones and held steady. The procession moved through the crystal city toward the palace. Valanthi citizens stopped to watch. Some pointed. Some laughed. A few young ones made faces, imitating what they thought human expressions looked like. Their parents did not stop them. Park Yuna walked close to Do-hyun. "They think we are animals," she whispered. "Clever animals. But animals. Let them think what they want." Do-hyun replied quietly. "Thoughts do not break bones." The palace was larger than some human cities. Its walls were made of living crystal that sang softly when wind touched it. Servants moved through halls that had seen 10,000 years of history. Every surface was carved with images of Valanthi victories, Valanthi heroes, Valanthi glory. There were no images of defeat. The Valanthi had never lost a war. The welcoming ceremony was held in a hall that could fit a small mountain inside it. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into soft light. Thousands of Valanthi nobles filled the space, their armor and jewels catching the light like scattered stars. At the far end, on a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal, sat Empress Valeth. She was old in a way that made her more dangerous, not less. Her eyes saw everything. Her face showed nothing. The humans walked forward through the crowd. Whispers followed them like shadows. "So small. Look at their soft skin. How do they survive on their death world without armor? Primitive. Amusing. But primitive." Do-hyun heard all of it. His face remained stone. Beside him, Captain Tae-ho's jaw was tight, but he too showed nothing. The ceremony began. There were speeches about cooperation and mutual benefit. There were toasts, with ceremonial wine, that burned going down. There were formal introductions that seemed to go on forever. Do-hyun stood at attention through all of it. His legs began to ache. His back began to hurt. He ignored it. Pain was just information. Information could be set aside. Then it happened. A Valanthi noble, young and drunk on his own importance, walked past the human security line. He carried a cup of ceremonial wine, still steaming hot. As he passed Do-hyun, his hand tilted. The scalding liquid poured across Do-hyun's hand and wrist. The pain was immediate and intense. The wine was not just hot, it was designed to be hot. kept at temperatures that would mark Valanthi's skin as a sign of courage for drinking it. On human skin, it was enough to cook flesh. Do-hyun did not move. He did not flinch, did not cry out, did not even look at the noble who had burned him. He simply stood there, eyes forward, face empty, while his skin screamed in agony. The noble waited. He wanted a reaction. He wanted the human to show weakness, to cry or shout, or fall to his knees. The crowd around them had gone quiet, watching, waiting for entertainment. Do-hyun reached up slowly with his other hand. He wiped the remaining wine from his burned skin. Then he wiped his hand on his uniform, leaving a wet streak on the black fabric. Then, he returned to attention. The noble's smile faded. He walked away without a word. Captain Taeho's voice was barely a breath. Medical attention later. Yes, sir, Do-hyun replied, just as quietly. After the ceremony, high above the crowd, on a balcony reserved for the royal family, Princess Lirael watched the scene with growing interest. She was the third daughter of the Empress. Younger than her sisters but sharper in ways that mattered. She had spent years studying alien species, trying to understand why some rose and some fell. Humans were supposed to be nothing special. A young species from a violent world, lucky enough to stumble into faster-than-light travel. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They should have been servants or slaves or simply ignored. But the human below had just been burned badly enough to scar, and he had not moved. Had not even changed his breathing. Lirael leaned forward, studying him more closely. He was not large, even by human standards. His face was marked with small scars, old ones. His eyes were dark and quiet, like deep water. There was something in those eyes that she had not seen in any of the champions or princes or warriors who had paraded before her. She could not name it yet. But she wanted to understand it. That night, the human delegation slept in quarters that were comfortable, but clearly lesser than what other species received. Do-hyun sat alone in his small room, treating his burned hand with supplies from their medical kit. The skin was red and blistered. It would heal, but it would leave marks. More scars to add to his collection. There was a sound outside. Shouting. Then, the crack of energy weapons. Do-hyun was moving before thought caught up to action. He grabbed his sidearm and ran toward the ambassador's quarters. His burned hand screamed at him. He ignored it. He reached the ambassador's door just as a figure in dark armor raised a blade toward Director Kwon. Do-hyun did not hesitate. He threw himself between them, feeling the blade slice across his shoulder as he knocked it aside. His gun came up. He fired twice. The assassin fell. More guards arrived, Valanthi and human both. There was chaos and shouting and demands for explanations. But in the middle of it all, Do-hyun simply stood there, bleeding from his shoulder, his burned hand hanging at his side, his eyes scanning for more threats. High above, watching from a security feed in her private chambers, Princess Lirael made a decision. She did not know yet what she would do with it, but she knew that the human called Kang Do-hyun was not like anything she had seen before, and she wanted to know why. 3 days passed after the assassination attempt. The Valanthi officials called it the work of rogue elements, extremists who acted alone. Nothing to do with the empire or its noble houses. No one believed them, but no one could prove otherwise. Do-hyun's wounds healed faster than the Valanthi expected. Human medicine was not as advanced as theirs, but human bodies had their own stubborn ways of knitting back together. The doctors said it was because humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Their bodies had learned to recover quickly or die. The diplomatic talks continued. Director Kwon negotiated for mining rights in a distant nebula. The Valanthi negotiated for access to certain human technologies. Both sides smiled and lied and pretended to be friends. Meanwhile, the palace prepared for something far more important than trade agreements, the selection ceremony. Park Yuna explained it to the human delegation during their morning briefing. Her voice was careful, choosing words that would not offend any listening devices hidden in the walls. Every Velanthi princess must choose a consort when she comes of age. It is one of their oldest traditions. The selection is sacred. Once a choice is made, it cannot be refused. Captain Tejo frowned. And we are invited to watch? As a diplomatic courtesy. Yuna's tone made clear what she really meant. As a humiliation. To show us our place. The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of Choosing. It was even larger than the welcoming hall, if such a thing was possible. Ancient banners hung from walls that stretched up into darkness. The floor was polished stone that reflected everything like black water. Candidates had come from across the galaxy. Warriors from a dozen species stood in formal lines, each one more impressive than the last. There were giants with 4 arms and skin like metal. There were sleek hunters with teeth like knives and eyes that saw in darkness. There were princes in armor worth more than planets, carrying weapons that had killed thousands. And then there were the humans. Standing in the back, watching, Do-hyun kept his eyes forward. His shoulder still ached where the blade had cut him. His hand still showed the marks of the burning wine. But he stood straight and still. Just another piece of the background. Prince Kalen arrived last, as was his right as the favored candidate. He was Velanthi, but from a different clan than the royal family. His armor was gold and white, polished until it hurt to look at. His face was handsome in the sharp way of his people, and his eyes held the easy confidence of someone who had never truly lost anything. He walked past the human delegation and paused. His golden eyes found Do-hyun and stayed there for a moment. So this is the human pet that caused all the excitement, Kalen said. His voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I heard you stopped an assassin. How brave. Like a trained animal protecting its master. Do-hyun said nothing. His eyes did not waver. Kalen smiled. Nothing to say? Perhaps your species lacks the intelligence for conversation. He laughed and walked on to take his place among the candidates. Captain Tejo's hands had formed fists at his sides. Park Yuna grabbed his arm and held him still. Not here, she whispered. Not now. The ceremony began with music that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The Empress sat on her black throne, watching everything with eyes that missed nothing. Her other daughters sat beside her, older than Lirael, already married to powerful allies. Then Princess Lirael entered. She wore silver and blue, colors that caught the light and threw it back in patterns that shifted like water. Her hair was long and dark, unusual for her people who usually kept their heads smooth. Her face was calm, but her eyes were alive with something Do-hyun could not name. She was beautiful, even by human standards. Even by the standards of a man who had trained himself not to notice such things. The candidates presented themselves one by one. Each demonstrated their worth through displays of combat, skill, or recitations of their lineage, or offerings of tribute from conquered worlds. Kalen's display was the most impressive. He fought 6 opponents at once and defeated them all without being touched. He recited a family history that stretched back 50,000 years. He offered tribute that included ships and planets and the preserved heads of enemies who had dared to challenge him. The crowd approved. This was what a consort should be. Power, glory, victory. Empress Valeth turned to her daughter. The demonstrations are complete. You have seen what the galaxy offers. Make your selection. Lirael stood. The hall went silent. She descended from the raised platform where the royal family sat. Her steps were slow and measured. Every eye in the room followed her. She walked past the 4-armed giants, past the hunters with their knife teeth, past princes and champions and warriors who had bathed in the blood of enemies. She walked past Prince Kalen, who smiled confidently as she approached, then frowned as she continued past him without a glance. She walked all the way to the back of the hall, all the way to where the human delegation stood. She stopped directly in front of Kang Do-hyun. The silence was so complete that Do-hyun could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel every eye in the room pressing against him like physical weight. He kept his face empty, kept his breathing steady, But inside, something cold was spreading through his chest. Lyra El studied him for a long moment. Her eyes moved across his face, his scars, his still healing wounds. She looked at him the way someone might look at a puzzle they had finally solved. Then she turned to face her mother. "Mother," she said. Her voice carried through the hall like a bell. "I select him." The silence shattered. Voices erupted from everywhere at once, shouting, protests, demands for explanation. The candidates stirred like an angry sea. Prince Kalen's face had gone dark with rage. Empress Valeth raised one hand. The hall fell silent again, though the anger remained, pressing against the walls like heat before a storm. "Daughter," the Empress said. Her voice was ice. "Explain yourself." Lyrael did not flinch. "The selection is my right. The choice is mine alone. I have made it. You would choose a human." Valeth spoke the word like it tasted bad. "A creature from a primitive world. A species that has existed for barely a moment in cosmic time. You would shame our house with this? I would honor our house with truth." Lyrael's voice remained steady. "I watched every candidate in this hall. I saw them display power. I saw them display glory. But I only saw one being display what truly matters. And what is that?" Lyrael turned slightly, looking at Do-hyun again. "Control. 3 days ago, this human was burned badly enough to scar. And he did not move, did not flinch, did not show any sign of weakness. That same night, he threw himself between an assassin's blade and his charge without hesitation. He was cut open. And still, he fought. He has been mocked and insulted and treated as less than an animal, and still he stands with perfect composure." She faced her mother again. "Every champion in this hall displayed power. This human displayed something stronger. Mastery of self. The ability to endure what would break others and remain standing." The hall was quiet now. Not the angry silence of before, but something more thoughtful. Even Empress Valeth seemed to be considering her daughter's words. But High Commander Sorath, who stood among the military leaders, stepped forward. His face was twisted with disgust. "This is an insult that cannot stand. The selection is sacred, yes, but it was never meant for animals. I petition for the trial of worth. Let the human prove himself worthy or die." A murmur ran through the crowd. The trial of worth. An ancient rite that allowed rejected candidates to challenge a selection through combat. Empress Valeth was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. "The petition is valid. Prince Kalen, as the favored candidate, you have the right to challenge. Do you accept?" Kalen's smile returned. It was not a nice smile. "I accept. I will enjoy teaching this human the cost of reaching above his station." The Empress turned to Do-hyun. "Human, you have been challenged. The trial will take place in 3 days. If you are victorious, the selection stands. If you fail, you die. And my daughter will choose again." She paused. "Do you understand?" Do-hyun stepped forward. His voice was calm. "I understand. Do you accept? Do I have a choice?" A thin smile touched the Empress's lips. "No, you do not." "Then I accept." The ceremony ended in chaos. But through all of it, Do-hyun's face remained stone. Only his eyes showed anything at all. And what they showed was not fear. The human quarters felt smaller that night. The walls pressed in. The air felt thick. Captain Taeho paced back and forth, while Director Kwan sat with her head in her hands. Park Yuna stared at data screens, showing everything they could find about Prince Kalen and the trial of worth. The information was not encouraging. Do-hyun sat alone by the window, looking out at the Crystal City. The alien stars burned in unfamiliar patterns overhead. 47, Yuna said quietly. Kalen has killed 47 opponents in ritual combat. The fastest kill was 4 seconds. The longest was 3 minutes. And he was playing with that one. Volanthi physiology, Taeho added, his voice tight. 3 times human strength, twice our speed. natural armor that can stop most projectile weapons, and centuries of training. Director Quan looked up. Can we refuse? Withdraw from the selection somehow? Yuna shook her head. Refusing a selection is punishable by death. For Do-hyun. Possibly for all of us. The Valanthi take their traditions very seriously. Then we leave. Get to our ship and our ship has been moved to a secure dock. For our protection, they said. Taeho's laugh was bitter. We are trapped. Our Krost. Number 5. Looks to our. Taeho's laugh was bitter. Do-hyun continued to watch the stars. He had said nothing since they returned from the ceremony. There must be something, Kwon said. Some rule. Some exception. There is no exception. The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Princess Lirael stood there. Alone. Without guards or servants. She wore simple clothing now. Not the ceremony robes. She looked almost normal. Almost human. Taeho's hand moved toward his weapon, but Do-hyun spoke without turning from the window. Let her in. Lirael entered. The door closed behind her. She looked at the humans gathered there, seeing their fear and anger and confusion. I owe you an explanation, she said. You owe us more than that. Kwan's voice was sharp. You may have just killed one of my people with your game. It was not a game. Lirael's eyes found Do-hyun's back. And he is not dead yet. Really? It was not dead yet. Do-hyun finally turned. His face was calm, as always. But there was something new in his eyes. A question, waiting to be asked. Why? He said. Just one word. Lirael took a breath. May I sit? No one offered her a seat. She remained standing. I have been watching your species since you arrived, she began. At first, I thought what everyone else thought. That you were primitives. Lucky children who stumbled into space before you were ready. But then I started to notice things. She began to pace slowly, her movements graceful but restless. When the noble burned you with ceremonial wine, my people expected you to scream, to fall, to show weakness. Instead, you showed nothing. I checked the temperature of that wine. It was hot enough to cause severe burns on Valanthi skin, on human skin. She shook her head. You should have been in agony. But you stood there like it was nothing. It was not nothing, Do-hyun said quietly. It hurt. But you did not show it. That is the point. Lirael stopped pacing and faced him directly. My people have become soft, human. We are so powerful that we have forgotten what struggle means. Our warriors train for centuries, but they have never truly fought for survival. They fight for glory, for honor, for pride, but not for survival. And you think we are different? I know you are different. I studied your world, Kang Do-hyun. Earth, a planet that tries to kill everything on it. Extreme temperatures, predators in every environment, diseases that adapt faster than you can cure them. And yet, your species did not just survive. You became the dominant life form. You hunted everything else into extinction. You reshaped the planet itself to serve you. She stepped closer to him. Do you know what we call species like yours? The ones that come from death worlds? I do not. We call them persisters, because you do not stop. You do not give up. You do not accept defeat. You just keep going until you win or until you die. And even death does not always stop you. The room was very quiet. The other humans listened, hearing something they had never considered before. My empire is dying, Lirael continued. Her voice was softer now. Not quickly, not obviously, but we are dying all the same. We have become so used to winning that we have forgotten how to grow. We need something new, something that will wake us up, something that will remind us what it means to truly fight. And you think I am that something? Do-hyun's voice held no pride. If anything, he sounded tired. I think your people are that something. And you. She reached out and touched the scar on his face. The old one that had been there before he ever came to this world. You are the proof. You have been fighting your whole life. Not for glory, not for honor, just to survive. I can see it in your eyes. Do-hyun caught her wrist gently and lowered her hand. You see what you want to see, princess. Perhaps, but I also see something you do not see in yourself. She pulled her hand back. I see someone who does not know how to stop. And that is why I chose you. 1. Captain Taeho stepped forward. This is all very meaningful, princess. But it does not change the fact that Kalen will kill him. Your warrior is stronger, faster, better trained. In 3 days, Do-hyun will be dead. Maybe. Lirael turned to face Taeho. Or maybe, you underestimate what a persister can do when pushed to the limit. I have studied your history. Captain, your people have won battles they should have lost, have survived things that should have killed you, have beaten enemies that were stronger in every measurable way. This is not a battle. This is a duel. One-on-one. No tactics, no strategy. Just 2 fighters, and whoever survives. Then perhaps, Lirael said, you should start thinking of ways to give your fighter an advantage. The rules of the trial allow each combatant to bring their own weapon. Perhaps human weapons have something to offer. She walked toward the door, then stopped, and looked back at Do-hyun. I know you did not ask for this. I know you think I have used you for my own purposes. And perhaps I have. But I also believe in what I said. You are not just a primitive, from a primitive world. You are something the galaxy has forgotten could exist. A survivor. A persister. Someone who endures. And if I die in 3 days? Lirael met his eyes. Then I will have been wrong. And I will live with that shame for the rest of my very long life. But I do not think I am wrong. Kang Do-hyun, I think you are going to surprise everyone. She left. The door closed behind her. The humans stood in silence for a long moment. Then Director Kwon spoke. She is using you. You know that. Thanks for watching. Watch. You can do that. Yes, Do-hyun said. And you are going to fight anyway? Do-hyun looked back out at the alien stars. I do not have a choice. But that does not mean I have to lose. Taeho moved to stand beside him. The captain's going to need to hear your plan. I do not have a plan yet. But I have 3 days. And I have something Kalen does not have. What is that? Do-hyun turned away from the window. For the first time since the ceremony, there was something in his eyes that looked almost like fire. 48 is a nice round number. Taeho stared at him for a moment. Then, slowly, he began to smile. They had 3 days. And humans had done more with less. The arena of ancestors was older than human civilization. Its walls had seen 10,000 years of combat. Blood from 100 species had soaked into its stone floor. Champions had risen here. Legends had died here. Now the galaxy watched to see a human die here. Billions of beings across countless worlds had tuned in to witness the trial. The betting markets had set the odds at 200 to 1 against Do-hyun. Some bookmakers had stopped taking bets entirely. It was not gambling when the outcome was certain. The arena was a circle of black stone, 50 meters across. No cover, no terrain, just flat ground and 2 fighters. Above, tens of thousands of Volanthi filled the seats. Their voices a constant roar, like an angry ocean. Do-hyun stood in the fighters' preparation chamber, a small room beneath the arena floor. The human delegation had gathered there with him. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Captain Taeho had spent 3 days studying every recording of Kalen's fights. Park Yuna had analyzed Volanthi physiology until she could describe every weakness, every vulnerability. Director Kwon had negotiated for every advantage the rules allowed. It was not much, but it was something. Do-hyun wore light armor, designed by human military engineers. It would not stop a direct blow from Kalen, but it might turn a glancing hit His weapon was a blade, simple and sharp, made from materials that could cut through Valanthy armor if the strike was precise enough. If. That was the word that hung over everything. Taeho put a hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. Remember what we discussed. Do not try to match his strength. Do not try to match his speed. Just stay alive. Make him work for every hit. Tire him out. I remember. Valanthy have endurance, but not like us. Their bodies are built for short, powerful bursts. They are sprinters. We are marathon runners. The longer this fight goes, the better your chances. Do-hyun nodded. He had heard this many times in the past 3 days. Park Yuna stepped forward. The armor plates on his chest and arms are the thickest. But there are gaps at the joints, under the arms, behind the knees, at the neck, where the skull meets the spine. If you get a chance, I know where to strike. Do-hyun's voice was quiet. I have studied. I have prepared. Now I must fight. The chamber door opened. A Valanthy official stood there, his face blank. It is time. Do-hyun walked toward the door, then stopped. He looked back at his people, his family, in a way. The only family he had left. If I fall, he said, make sure Earth knows what happened here. Make sure they know we did not beg. We did not kneel. We stood. Then he walked into the arena. The roar of the crowd hit him like a physical force. The hatred in it was thick enough to taste. But beneath the hatred, there was something else. Excitement. Anticipation. The thrill of watching something they had never seen before. A human, walking willingly to his death. Prince Kalen was already waiting in the center of the arena. His armor gleamed gold and white. His weapon was a curved blade, as long as Do-hyun was tall. He smiled as Do-hyun approached, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. Little human, Kalen said. I will make this quick. It would be cruel to make you suffer. Do-hyun said nothing. He took his position across from Kalen and raised his blade. High above, in the royal box, Princess Lirael watched. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair hard enough to turn her knuckles pale. Beside her, Empress Valeth sat in perfect stillness, watching her daughter as much as the arena below. The signal sounded. The trial began. Kalen moved first. He crossed the distance between them in a blur of speed that the human eye could barely track. His blade came down in an arc that would have split a vehicle in two. Do-hyun was not there. He had moved the moment Kalen did, not trying to block the strike but sliding to the side, letting the blade pass close enough to feel the wind of its passing. He did not counterattack. He simply moved again, putting distance between them. Kalen laughed. Running already? The little human shows his nature. He attacked again. And again. Each strike was powerful enough to shatter stone. Each strike found only empty air. Do-hyun did not fight back. He simply moved, dodged, slipped away at the last moment. His breathing was steady. His face was calm. He watched Kalen with eyes that missed nothing. The crowd began to boo. This was not what they came to see. They wanted blood. They wanted screaming. They wanted the human broken and begging. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Kalen's attacks became faster, harder, more desperate. His smile was gone now, replaced by frustration. Why would the human not stand and fight? Why did he keep moving? But something else was happening too. Something the crowd was starting to notice. Kalen was breathing harder. His movements were becoming slightly less precise. The bursts of incredible speed were coming less often. And Do-hyun had not slowed at all. In the royal box, Lirael leaned forward. Her eyes were bright. Do you see it, Mother? Valeth was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. The human is hunting him. It was true. Do-hyun was not running. He was circling, testing, learning. Every dodge, every slip, Every narrow escape was giving him information. He was reading Kalen's patterns, predicting his movements, waiting for the right moment. 20 minutes. 25. Kalen's attacks were slower now. His breathing was ragged. He had never fought this long before. None of his opponents had lasted more than 3 minutes. His body was not built for this kind of endurance, but Do-hyun's was. Millions of years of evolution had shaped human bodies for exactly this. For the long hunt. For the chase that never ended. For the pursuit that continued long after the prey thought it was safe. Persistence hunting. The strategy that had made humans the dominant predators on Earth. Not because they were strongest, not because they were fastest, but because they never stopped. Kalen swung again. His blade cut a line across Do-hyun's arm. Blood flowed, bright red against his pale skin. The crowd cheered. But Do-hyun did not fall, did not slow, did not even change his expression. He simply noted the wound and continued moving. Another cut. Across his leg this time. More blood. More cheers. Do-hyun stumbled. Kalen pressed forward, sensing victory at last, but the stumble was a trick. As Kalen lunged, Do-hyun dropped low and rolled under the strike. His blade came up in a precise arc, finding the gap in Kalen's armor at the back of his knee. The prince screamed. It was a sound the crowd had never heard before. A sound Kalen himself had never made. The scream of someone who had finally, truly, been hurt. He fell to one knee. Blood poured from the wound, bright and golden. Valanthi blood. Do-hyun rose behind him. His blade found another gap. The joint under Kalen's sword arm. The prince's weapon fell from suddenly nerveless fingers. The crowd had gone silent. Kalen tried to rise, but his leg would not support him. He turned, looking up at the human standing over him. For the first time in his long life, there was fear in his golden eyes. What are you? Do-hyun looked down at him. Blood ran from his own wounds, dripping onto the stone floor. He was hurt. He was tired. But he was still standing. I am human, he said. We do not stop. His blade found Kalen's neck. The arena was silent. Tens of thousands of Valanthi stared in shock at the impossible scene before them. A human, wounded and bleeding, standing over the body of their greatest champion. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. Not cheering, not hatred. Something else. Something that sounded almost like respect. In the royal box, Princess Lirael rose to her feet. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. Empress Valeth remained seated, her expression unreadable. But when she spoke, her voice carried across the silent arena. The trial is complete. The selection stands. Kang Do-hyun, of Earth, is worthy. Do-hyun looked up at the royal box. His eyes found Lirael's. He could not read her expression from this distance, but he thought she might be proud. Then his legs finally gave out, and the world went dark. Do-hyun woke in a bed softer than anything he had ever felt. The ceiling above him was high and decorated with crystal patterns that caught light from unseen sources. He was not in the human quarters anymore. He tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body from a dozen different places. His wounds had been treated with Valanthi medicine, which was far more advanced than human technology. But even advanced medicine could not make injuries disappear instantly. You should rest. The voice came from beside the bed. Do-hyun turned his head. Princess Lirael sat in a chair near the window, watching him with eyes that held something he could not quite read. How long? He asked. His voice was rough, like he had been screaming. 2 days. The doctors said your body needed time to recover. They were surprised you were alive at all. She paused. They were surprised by many things. Too prized. They were surprised by many things. Memory came flooding back. The arena. The fight. Kalen's screams. The blade, finding its mark. Is he dead? Yes. You killed him cleanly. That is respected here, even when the death is unexpected. Lirael rose from her chair and moved to stand beside the bed. You have changed everything, Kang Do-hyun. Do you understand that? He shook his head slowly. I only did what I had to do. You defeated our greatest champion. You, a human, killed a Valanthi warrior in single combat. News of this has spread across the galaxy. Species that have feared us for thousands of years are now asking themselves what else they got wrong. She sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that he could see the fine details of her alien features. Up close, she was beautiful and strange at the same time. Her skin had a faint shimmer that human skin did not have. Her eyes were slightly too large, slightly too bright, but there was something in those eyes that felt familiar. Something that looked almost human. Earth's value has increased overnight, she continued. Species that ignored your people are now requesting diplomatic meetings. Trade offers are coming in from across known space. You have done more for your world in one fight than years of negotiation could achieve. I did not fight for Earth. Then why did you fight? Do-hyun was silent for a moment. Then he turned away from her gaze. Because I did not have a choice. Because I would have died if I lost. Because dying is against my nature. Is that all? He did not answer. He did not know how to answer. Lirael reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cool against his skin. You are allowed to admit that you fought for something more. For pride. For honor. For the chance to prove that your species is more than what everyone believed. Those are Valanthi reasons. Do-hyun's voice was flat. I am not Valanthi. No. You are not. She squeezed his hand gently. And that is why I chose you. The door opened. Captain Taeho entered, followed by Park Yuna and Director Kwon. They stopped when they saw Lirael sitting so close to Do-hyun, but they said nothing about it. Good to see you awake, Taeho said. We were getting worried. I am hard to kill. We noticed. Yuna moved to check the medical displays beside the bed. The Valanthi doctors are impressed. They say your healing rate is faster than expected, even with their medicine helping. Human bodies are stubborn, Do-hyun said. We had to be. On Earth. Director Kwon stepped forward. Her face was serious. We need to discuss what happens next. The selection is confirmed. That means you and the princess are now in a formal courtship. There are expectations, traditions, political implications. Lirael stood. I will give you time to speak with your people. We can discuss the courtship requirements later. She looked down at Do-hyun. But know this. I do not regret my choice. Whatever comes next, I chose correctly. She left. The room felt somehow emptier without her. Taeho waited until the door closed, then moved closer. We have a problem. Only one? One that is bigger than the others. Taeho's voice dropped lower. High Commander Soreth was not happy about Kalen's death. He has spent the last 2 days meeting with conservative factions in the military. Our intelligence suggests he is planning something. What kind of something? We do not know yet. But Yuna intercepted communications that suggest there may be another assassination attempt. Not against the ambassador this time. No. No. Do-hyun understood immediately. Against me. You have become a symbol. A human who killed a Valanthi champion. To the conservative factions, you are a threat to everything they believe about their species' superiority. They will not let that stand. Do-hyun closed his eyes. He was tired. His body hurt. He had just fought the hardest battle of his life. And now he was being told that more enemies were coming. But he was not surprised. He had never expected things to be easy. Then we will be ready, he said. Over the next weeks, Do-hyun began the formal courtship with Lirael. It was strange and awkward at first. Valanthi courtship traditions were nothing like human ones. There were formal meals where specific foods had to be eaten in specific orders. There were ceremonies where words had to be spoken in ancient languages. There were gifts that had to be given and received according to rules that seemed random to human understanding. But through it all, Do-hyun and Lee-rael began to know each other. They talked about their worlds. Do-hyun described Earth, with its blue skies and green forests and endless oceans. Lee-rael spoke of Auraxis, with its crystal mountains and floating cities, and the deep memories held in every stone. They talked about their lives. Do-hyun told her about growing up in a small town, about joining the military because he had no other options, about the wars he had fought in humanity's early colonial period. He did not hide the dark parts, the things he had done, the people he had lost. Lee-rael listened without judgment. And when he was done, she shared her own dark parts. The loneliness of being a princess in a society that valued power above all else. The pressure to be perfect. Always. The fear that she would become like her mother, cold and calculating, and alone. One night, walking in the palace gardens under alien stars, Lee-rael asked the question that had been building between them. Do you hate me for choosing you? Do-hyun considered the question carefully before answering. I did at first. I felt used, trapped, forced into something I did not want. And now I understand why you did it. I do not agree with your methods, but I understand your reasons. Reasons. That is not the same as forgiveness. No, it is not. He stopped walking and turned to face her. But forgiveness can come later. For now, understanding is enough. She smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. You are a strange human. Kang Do-hyun. You are a strange princess. Perhaps that is why we might work. Before he could respond, an explosion rocked the palace. Alarms began to scream. Guards rushed past them, heading toward the source of the blast. Do-hyun grabbed Lee-rael and pulled her behind a stone column. His hand went to his weapon. It has begun, he said. Another explosion. Closer this time. Gunfire echoed through the crystal halls. In the distance, through the chaos, Do-hyun could see Captain Taeho running toward them. Behind him, Valanthi soldiers in unmarked armor were firing at anyone in their path. Sorath had made his move, and the palace was burning. Captain Taeho had taken a blade through his chest, protecting the human ambassador. He survived, but the doctors said he would need months to recover. The Valanthi medical technology was advanced, but even it had limits when the wound was so severe. Do-hyun stood by his captain's bedside, in the medical ward. Taeho was unconscious, machines keeping his body stable while it healed. He looked smaller somehow, lying there. Less like the unbreakable soldier Do-hyun had served under for years. This is my fault, Do-hyun said quietly. If I had not won the trial, none of this would have happened. Park Yuna stood behind him. If you had not won the trial, you would be dead. And probably the rest of us too. Sorath was always going to move against humanity. Your victory just forced his hand before he was ready. His hand. But not his network. Do-hyun turned away from the bed. The attack failed, but Sorath escaped. He still has supporters. He will try again. The Empress has ordered his arrest. Her soldiers are hunting him. Her soldiers are not enough. Do-hyun's voice was flat. Sorath knows every hiding place in the Empire. He has been building his network for centuries. The Empress can search for years and never find him. Then what do you suggest? Do-hyun was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was colder, harder. The voice of someone who had made a decision he did not like, but knew was necessary. I suggest we do things the human way. The next day, Do-hyun requested a private audience with Empress Valeth. It was an unusual request. One that protocol did not normally allow. But these were unusual times. And the Empress was curious about the human who had killed her champion and survived an assassination attempt. They met in a small chamber, private and secure. No servants, no guards, just the two of them. Valeth sat on a simple chair, her posture perfect despite the informality of the setting. She studied Do-hyun with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. You have something to say, human. Say it. High Commander Sorath is a threat to your throne. Not just to me, to you. Do-hyun did not waste time on pleasantries. He has built a network of supporters who believe the empire should return to the old ways. Who believe aliens should be conquered, not negotiated with. Who believe your policies of stability are making the Valanthi weak. I am aware of this. Then you are also aware that your current methods of hunting him will fail. Sorath knows the empire better than anyone. He can hide for decades if necessary. And while he hides, his network grows. His supporters recruit more supporters. His ideas spread. Valeth's expression did not change. And you believe you can do better than my soldiers? I believe I can do different. Explain. Do-hyun began to pace. It was not disrespectful in human culture, but he knew it was unusual in Valanthi society. He did not care. He needed to move to think. Your people fight with honor, with direct confrontation. When there is an enemy, you challenge them openly, defeat them in combat, and that is the end of it. It is an efficient system when your enemy plays by the same rules. And Sorath does not play by the same rules? Sorath uses shadows. Networks. Hidden support. He does not fight directly because he knows he would lose. So he fights indirectly. Do-hyun stopped pacing and faced the Empress. To defeat an enemy who fights in shadows, you must enter the shadows yourself. Valeth was silent. Her golden eyes were unreadable. What you are proposing is against our traditions. Yes, it is dishonorable, underhanded. The tactics of lesser species. Yes, and you believe it will work? I know it will work. Because I have done it before. Do-hyun held her gaze without flinching. My people learned long ago that the strongest enemy can be defeated if you find the right pressure points. Not through force, through patience, adaptation, exploitation of weakness. You speak of the human way of war. I speak of the human way of survival. We did not become the dominant species on our world because we were strongest. We became dominant because we were willing to do whatever it took to win. Whatever it took. Valeth rose from her chair. She was tall, taller than Do-hyun by a full meter. She could have killed him with a single blow. But she did not move toward him. She simply stood there, considering. If I allow this, she said slowly, there must be no connection to the throne. No evidence that the Empress approved of these methods. If you fail, if you are caught, I will deny any involvement. I understand. And if you succeed, there will be those who hate you for it, who see you as a dishonorable creature, who corrupted our society with human tactics. I am already hated. A little more makes no difference. For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered across Valeth's face. You are braver than I expected, human. Or perhaps, just more foolish. Perhaps both. Over the following weeks, Do-hyun began his campaign against Sorath. It was not a campaign of battles and glory. It was a campaign of whispers and shadows. He started by identifying Sorath's key supporters. Not through direct investigation, which Sorath would have expected, but through careful observation of who benefited from instability, who had unexplained wealth, who met in secret when they thought no one was watching. Then he began to turn them against each other. A rumor here about one noble stealing from another. A leaked document there, suggesting betrayal. Anonymous tips to rival factions, suggesting their allies were actually spies. Sorath's network began to fracture. Former allies became enemies. Trust evaporated. Supporters began to suspect each other, then to actively work against each other. The Valanthi watched this unfold with growing unease. This was not how things were done. There was no honor in it. No glory. Just slow, methodical destruction. Lirael confronted Do-hyun one night in his quarters. Her face was troubled. What are you doing? She demanded. What needs to be done? This is not you. The man I chose would not hide in shadows and spread lies. The man you chose was fighting for his life in an arena. Do-hyun's voice was tired but firm. That was direct. This is different. Sorath cannot be defeated with direct methods. So I am using indirect ones. You are becoming like him. Using the same tactics. No. I am using worse tactics. Because I have to. He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that frightened her. A coldness that had not been there before. You wanted to know what humans are. This is what we are. When pushed, we become whatever we need to become to survive. Whatever we need to become to win. Even monsters? Do-hyun was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. We have always been monsters. We just learned to point it at the right targets. Lirael reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were trembling. And when this is over, when Sorath is defeated, can you come back from this? He looked down at her hand in his. His own hands were not shaking. They never shook anymore. I do not know, he said honestly. I have never come back before. I have only ever gone forward. Sorath's final move came 3 weeks later. Desperate and cornered, his network crumbling around him, he attempted a direct assault on the palace with his remaining loyal soldiers. It was a last gamble. A chance to seize power before he lost everything. It failed catastrophically. Do-hyun had anticipated the attack. He had prepared countermeasures. When Sorath's forces arrived, they found not a vulnerable palace, but a trap. The battle was brief. Sorath was captured alive, brought before the Empress in chains. But there was no satisfaction in Do-hyun's eyes as he watched. Only exhaustion. Only the hollow feeling of a man who had done terrible things for good reasons and was not sure if the reasons were good enough. When Lirael took his hand, he flinched. He was afraid she would see what he had become, but she did not pull away. 6 months had passed since Sorath's defeat. The Empire had changed in ways both visible and invisible. The old certainties had cracked. New possibilities had emerged, and now, on a day that would be remembered for 10,000 years, a human was going to marry a princess. The wedding would take place in the Grand Hall of Ancestors, the same hall where Lirael had made her selection. But the hall had been transformed. Human flowers sat beside Valanthy crystals. Earth music played softly alongside alien harmonies. For the first time in history, 2 worlds were joining together in a single ceremony. Do-hyun stood in the preparation chamber, wearing a formal outfit that blended human and Valanthy styles. The black fabric was human. The silver patterns were Valanthy. Together, they created something new. Something that belonged to neither world, but somehow fit both. Captain Taeho stood beside him, recovered from his wounds, but still moving carefully. He would serve as Do-hyun's witness, as human tradition required. Nervous? Taeho asked. I have fought in wars. I have killed champions. I have brought down networks of enemies through methods I am not proud of. Do-hyun adjusted his collar for the 10th time. None of that prepared me for this. Taeho laughed. It was good to hear him laugh again. For a while, after the attack, no one had been sure he ever would. Marriage is the greatest battle of all, Taeho said. Or so the married soldiers always told me. You never married? Never found the right person? Never had time. Taeho shrugged. But you, my friend, you found someone. Or perhaps she found you. Either way, this is a good thing, even if it terrifies you. The door opened. Park Yuna entered. Her formal dress elegant but practical. She had been appointed as permanent cultural liaison between the human delegation and the Valanthy court. It was an important position, one that would shape relations between their peoples for generations. It is time, she said. The guests are seated. The Empress is waiting. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Then, let us not keep them waiting longer. The walk to the Grand Hall felt both eternal and instant. Do-hyun's feet moved without his conscious direction. His heart beat steady and strong, as it had in battle. But this was different from battle. In battle, he knew what he was doing. He understood the rules. Here, he was stepping into territory he had never explored. The doors opened. The hall stretched before him, filled with thousands of beings. Valanthi nobles in formal armor, human diplomats in their finest clothes, representatives from a dozen other species, here to witness what many had thought impossible, a human becoming part of the Valanthi royal family. Do-hyun walked forward. Every eye followed him. He ignored them all. He was looking at only one person. Lirael waited at the far end of the hall, standing before the Empress's throne. She wore white and silver, colors of union in Valanthi tradition. Her hair was styled in a way that blended human and alien fashions. She was beautiful in a way that made Do-hyun's chest hurt, but it was her eyes that held him. Her eyes that had seen something in him worth choosing. Her eyes that had not looked away, even when he showed her the darkness inside himself. He reached her. They stood facing each other, close enough to touch but not touching. Not yet. Tradition had rules. Empress Valith rose from her throne. She had changed in the past months. The coldness was still there, but there was something else now. Something that might have been acceptance, or perhaps even hope. "We gather here to witness a union," she began. Her voice carried through the hall without effort. A union between worlds, between species, between two beings who have chosen each other, despite every obstacle. She looked at Do-hyun. "When you arrived on our world, human, I saw nothing special in you. You were small, weak, a creature from a primitive world playing at being civilized. I thought my daughter had gone mad when she chose you." A murmur ran through the crowd. Such honesty from the Empress was unusual. "I was wrong." Valith let those words hang in the air. "You have shown strength that has nothing to do with size, courage that has nothing to do with armor, wisdom that has nothing to do with age. You have earned your place here, Kang Do-hyun, of Earth." She turned to Lirael. "My daughter, you chose with your heart and your mind together. You saw what others could not see. That is a rare gift. I am proud of you." Lirael blinked rapidly. Do-hyun suspected she had never heard those words from her mother before. "Now," Valith continued, "the vows must be spoken. Human tradition first, as the custom requires for visiting species." Do-hyun turned to face Lirael fully. He took her hands in his. They were cool against his warm skin. Different, but somehow right. "On Earth," he began, "we have a saying. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. My people have been falling since we first looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. We fell when we left our home world. We fell when we encountered species that looked down on us. We fell when our enemies tried to destroy us." He squeezed her hands gently. "But we keep standing. We keep moving forward. We keep fighting. Not because we are strong, not because we are brave, but because we do not know how to stop." His voice grew softer, more personal. "I have fallen many times in my life, Lirael. I have been broken and rebuilt. I have done things I am not proud of. I have become someone I do not always recognize. But through all of it, one thing has remained true. I do not stop. I do not give up. I do not accept defeat." He raised one hand to touch her face. "I promise to bring that same determination to our union. I promise to stand with you through every fall, to rise with you every time, to never stop fighting for what we can build together. This is my vow. This is the human way." Lirael's eyes glistened. When she spoke, her voice was strong despite the emotion in it. "On Auraxis, we measure worth in centuries of achievement, in bloodlines that stretch back to the first days of our civilization, in power accumulated over lifetimes longer than your entire species has existed." She took a breath. "But I have learned that worth can be measured in other ways. In a man who does not flinch when burned, who throws himself between danger and duty without hesitation, who endures what should be unendurable, and remains standing. Her hands tightened on his. I chose you because you showed me what I had been searching for all my life. The truth that our people have forgotten. That strength is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you can survive, what you can overcome, what you can become when everything tries to break you. I promise to honor your strength, to support your struggles, to be your partner in every battle, whether it is fought with weapons or words or patience. I promise to learn from you and teach you in return, to build something new from what we both bring. She smiled, and it was like watching a sun rise. This is my vow. This is what I choose, not because tradition demands it, but because I want it. Because I choose you. Kang Do-hyun. Today and every day that follows, Empress Valeth spoke the final words. By the authority of the throne and the witness of these gathered, I declare this union complete. May your bond strengthen both your peoples. May your children inherit the best of both worlds. May your legacy endure. For the first time, Do-hyun and Lirael touched as husband and wife. A simple gesture, hands joining, bodies moving closer, the seal of a promise made before thousands. The crowd erupted in response. Not all of it positive. Some still harbored doubts. Some still hated the union. But enough voices rose in celebration that the hall filled with sound like a living thing. Later, at the reception, Do-hyun stood at a window looking out at the crystal city. The alien stars burned overhead. Same as always. But something had changed. He had changed. Park Yuna approached him. Deep thoughts? Wondering what comes next. What comes next is everything. Yuna smiled. A new chapter. For you. For Earth. For everyone. No pressure. None at all. She laughed quietly. You know, a young cadet asked me something yesterday. She wanted to know how we went from being seen as primitives to this, to having one of ours marry into the most powerful family in the galaxy. What did you tell her? Yuna watched Lirael across the room, surrounded by well-wishers but looking toward her husband with eyes that held no doubt. I told her we did not become something new. The galaxy just finally learned what we have always been. Do-hyun nodded slowly. He thought about Earth, far away across the stars, about the ancestors who had crossed frozen plains and burning deserts, who had hunted prey larger than themselves through sheer persistence, who had reached for the sky with nothing but stubbornness and dreams. We keep standing, he said quietly. Always, Yuna agreed. Across the room, Lirael caught his eye and smiled. He smiled back. For the first time, in longer than he could remember, it was an easy smile. A smile without shadows behind it. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Fall 7 times. Stand up 8. That was the human way.